Today I'm going to ask you to do something radical, something so insane it's rarely done anymore, something that is totally out of sync with the world we live in right now, something that seems on a certain level foolish. I want you to hope and to share your reason for hope. In a moment, we will form breakout groups and share our hopes with each other. Hope seems so out of line with our times. The Voting Rights Act has been eliminated by the Supreme Court, and southern state governments are moving to redistrict voting areas to dilute the African American vote. The nation is in an endless, needless war that has no purpose and is affecting the world economy. Medical research is being hampered by politicians eliminating research and preventing vaccination from disease. Supreme Court judges have received gifts from companies and persons who will be pleading cases before the Supreme Court. Military leaders are being discriminated against on the basis of religion, gender, and race. Healthcare benefits have been cut to pay for a war that cannot be explained to the public. The very rich are receiving tax cuts, while the poor are experiencing cuts to support. Criminals and insane people are in the highest ranks of power. This is the reality that we are facing. On most days, it is likely that many of us dread reading or watching the news because it's one shocking item after another. Yet we also need to hold on to optimism. This is not an optimism that is blind or in denial to what is happening, but an optimism that grounds us in the truth that we can overcome this moment. Optimism that still believes in possibility in the face of despair. Perhaps one of the lessons of history is that optimism is not naive for those grounded in hope. Guillermo del Toro, and I hope I pronounced that right, the writer and filmmaker, offers this perspective. He writes, "Optimism is radical. It is the hard choice, the brave choice. And it is, it seems to me, most needed in the face of despair, just as a car is most useful when you have a distance to close. Otherwise, it is a large, unmovable object parked in a garage. These days, the safest way for someone to appear intelligent is being skeptical by default. We seem so sophisticated when we say we don't believe, and disingenuous when we say we do. History and fable have both proven that nothing is ever entirely lost. David can take Goliath. A beach in Normandy can turn the tide of war. Bravery can topple the powerful. These facts are often seen as exceptional, but they are not. Every day we become the balance of our choices between love and fear, belief or despair. No hope is ever too small." Del Toro tells us that we have the choice in our spirit or mind or soul to walk with one choice of inspiration or to choose the path that weakens us. He reminds us that no hope is ever too small. We are a people of faith and faiths. We are a people who absorb the world, struggle to maintain a sense of agency in times when that seems difficult. This congregation is a place that offers hope. It is not just the minister who does that. It is each of us, each one of you. James Luther Adams, a Unitarian Universalist minister who was also professor of social ethics at Harvard University, said that We believe in the priesthood and prophethood of all believers. And he was not just talking, he wasn't talking about other people, he was talking about us. We are all ministers of this larger faith and have the calling to speak to and act on things that are important. We are called to have hope. So I now ask you to take a minute to think silently about where you find hope. At the end of the minute, I will ask you to gather those with those near you and share your hope. Let's take a minute to reflect, and I'll ask someone who has a timer, other than myself, to time us for a minute. Just take a moment of silence to think about the hope. Larry will time us. He always has good timing. A minute in a crowded room like this seems like a long time. Let us now share our hope with each other. You will have 7 minutes. I'll ask Larry to give us 7 minutes to do so. I now invite you to move to your previous seating arrangement, if you would. The danger with Unitarian Universalists is that if you give them, they won't want to let go. Let us now share our hope with each other. We have about 7 minutes to do so. Would anyone like to share with the larger congregation? And that includes people online.
Well, I gotta get to that.
Okay. And would anyone like to share the joy or, the hope that you expressed? Don't be shy. You want to? Please do. Come forward if you're willing and able.
We have to be willing to accept pain and struggle because that's just part of life. But all empires fall eventually. Women died to get the right to vote. Black people died to get the right to vote. It will happen again. We have to be willing to tolerate pain and discomfort, but it's going to happen.
The flowers are in the ground. The children are grown and doing wonderful things. And the people are gathering at the No Kings rallies against this terrible regime.
My group asked me to share this. Because I work with college students, you may or may not know, not all college students agree to use AI, and some of them reject it. And some of them reject it because it erodes creativity, and some of them reject it because it's socially biased, and some of them reject it because it's environmentally unsound.
I thank you so much for sharing that. That's always important for all of us. What is needed now is hope. Hope is that fragile thing that compels us forward in life. Hope tells us to move beyond the moment to envision something else. Hope preserves possibility in our lives. Hope tells us that we have a second chance. Hope speaks to all that is and will be. This part of my message was written 14 years ago, before I had a child and had more time to reflect on my sermon and could actually spend time thinking about the construction of a sentence rather than just getting it to the paper. Hope is not a blind thing. It sees all that is, and even though life is often a struggle, it still proclaims the possibility of every new day. Hope gives birth to healing, inspiring, creating, growing, and developing. It's what we find in ourselves when we feel great loss, but still turn toward the next moment with joy and creativity. If ever you visit the Second Unitarian Church of Chicago, go to the back of the sanctuary. First time I visited the church, I thought it was an abstract sculpture from a distance. It is a big jet black metal thing atop a marble ionic pedestal, about 5 feet high. The pedestal is. The object is only about a foot high. Displayed like a work of art, it is an anvil. Yes, an anvil. The anvil represents the time in the congregation's history when the congregation gave hope to the city of Chicago. The year was 1871, and the Great Fire ravaged Chicago. Hundreds of people perished. 100,000 people were made homeless, and half the buildings in the city were destroyed. On the first Sunday after the fire, Robert Collier, the minister of the congregation that would be later known as the Second Unitarian Church of Chicago, preached on the sidewalk in front of the ashes of the church building. The gist of his sermon that day was that the city was still needed. All that it was before has gone, but what will come will be greater. It was a message of hope, and it inspired the people of Chicago. And the sermon was printed in newspapers all throughout the United States because it provided that fragile thing called hope. So, why the anvil? Robert Collier, before becoming a Unitarian minister, was a blacksmith. One of his later congregations sent this anvil, his anvil, to Second Unitarian as a reminder of hope. They knew that should Chicago ever burn again, that the anvil would probably still make it. This anvil was to remind that congregation that hope endures, even through devastation. They said, even if this church building burns to the ground as the previous one did, someone will be here to pluck this anvil out of the ashes and to rebuild. The anvil is a symbol of hope. Hope is important. Hope looks toward the future and tells us that something good will be happening. Hope reminds us that people in the past in this religious movement, this culture, this congregation, were hopeful. Hope is still present. It calls for equality for all people, balance with the earth, religious toleration, reason in human existence, care for the next generation. Hope reminds us that the good must be supported, and that giving is the most important thing we can do. We support that which gives birth to hope in our lives. Sometimes, though, hope is what is more required. And if this nation is to endure and to thrive, you must be in a spirit of hope so that it takes us to the next place. Remember that faith, hope, and love or charity are not abstract ideals, but the thing of living and the thing of action. These closing words are from a sermon by my colleague, Patrick O'Neill. He writes, "Hope is a way of being in the world, but it is also a way of acting and doing in the world. Hope is a way of looking and believing and relating in the world. Hope sees the connection of action and consequence in this life. We keep hope alive for ourselves and for a weary world by working to establish the conditions where hope thrives." Here's the thing about hope. Hope is a contact sport. You get it from others and you give it to others, as you have done today. It's one good reason to come to church, honestly, because church, if we're doing it right, is one of those places where hope lives.